Man, I love watching cartoons. I've been watching them for as long as I can remember. Nice, clean, wholesome fun for the whole family. These guys would never do anything to hurt ya. There's no way watching these bright, colorful shows could ever lead to nights of painful nightmares, panic-inducing anxieties, and go on to form long-lasting and crippling phobias. Well, I mean, probably not on purpose, at least. Yes, that's right, today we are going to be talking about things in cartoons that made little D'Angelo have to change his popsicle stick. And I think after a few years of therapy, I'm ready to tackle this topic. Now, when you talk about cartoons that caused a lot of childhood trauma, you have your obvious heavy hitters like Courage and Invader Zim and like, yeah, Return to Slab, Freaky Fred, Zim Harvested Organs, Big Whoop. You guys know that, you've seen all that, that's the old stuff. I'm here to bring you that new, hot and tasty new trauma that'll screw up the new generation. Because if I do this for any reason, it's for the kids. So enough beating around the bush, let's talk about the stuff that me right the up. First off the back, let's start with a curveball. Arthur is one of the nicest shows on television. These, well, let's just call them what they are, furries, live in a pretty much utopian society. No crime, everyone loves each other. Even the crooked car salesman coaches the Little League team. Arthur is also secretly a very funny show. Like, listen to some of the stuff the DW will say on the sly.
This is the most horrible time of my whole life. We're all gonna die in a heap.
Thank you for that vote of confidence.
This show is hilarious. But traumatizing? No. This is supposed to be a baby show.
Right? Wrong!
Some messed up stuff happened in Arthur. And a lot of it left me... Like, for example, there's an episode where Arthur is working on a project with the brain. Something goes wrong and they end up losing a wheel. So Arthur volunteers to get a replacement wheel. And that's nice, that's fine, this is shaping up to be a fairly standard episode of Arthur. But this is where the tone does a complete 180. You see, to get the wheel, Arthur has to go to the dump, where he is not allowed and not wanted. And the episode does an almost too good job at portraying that. The first thing that hits you is the music. It's creepy, foreboding even. It gives off the aura of not belonging here. And the sound design is also super effective in making a tense vibe. As Arthur walks through the dump, you hear glass and metal and plenty of other stuff that could seriously hurt Arthur, or worse. And let me tell you, watching this again, I was still on the edge of my seat, just praying for this poor Aardvark's safety. But then, the unthinkable happens. Arthur does get hurt, and this sucked to watch as a kid. From Arthur's gasp of pain to the fact that you actually see him bleeding. I was fearing for this dude's life. And then they talk about all the diseases you can get and how you can get real sick, and oh my god, Arthur is made of flesh and one day he will perish. Elwood isn't safe, it's a death trap, a deadly lima bean can filled hellhole. Nowhere is safe and no one can save you. I know it may not seem like such a big deal now, but when I was a kid, the fact that Arthur could get hurt and hurt relatively bad was not a nice thing to think about. I spent the next few years terrified of tetanus and lockjaw. Let's just say I did not complain about shots anymore. And that was only the first time Arthur freaked me out. There was another episode with Sue Ellen facing her fears. And watching this episode back now, it's actually pretty cool. The use of fall colors in the backgrounds and even the character designs is pretty pleasing to the eye. And it really gets you in the mood for Halloween. But then you get to the thing that Sue Ellen is afraid of, and... Nope. The Baba Yaga and Arthur terrified me as a kid, in kind of the same way that Ramsey scared me in Courage. The way she is drawn is completely different than the rest of the show. And that's a very effective way of letting a kid know that something is not right. Like, that don't look like that. I don't want it. Like, just this creepy old lady in this weird chicken house, man, none of it sits right with me. I was probably the only kid in the 2000s that if you asked them what they are most afraid of, it would be the Baba Yaga. You know, that super popular American fear. You can relate. Arthur was a great show, but sometimes it played too much. Now let's take it back a bit. I want to talk about Brave Star.
Brave Star. Brave Star.
Now, Brave Star is the coolest cartoon that you don't know about. It was made by the same people that brought you He-Man and She-Ra, but unlike those two things, this one actually holds up. Like, it's the coolest concept ever. The main character is a Native American space cowboy with a laser gun, shaman powers, and a cyborg horse that can transform into a robo horseman with a BFG. 80s cartoons don't get better than this, and I swear if Brave Star doesn't get a reboot soon, someone's gonna pay. Probably my intern. Now, Brave Star being an 80s cartoon, it of course had some very special episodes. You know, episodes that featured topics that your parents were supposed to teach, but were too scared, so they asked Optimus Prime. Which, fair enough, he would be a better dad than most. But this episode in particular has to do with drug abuse. Or more specifically, children doing drugs. Now these were a dime a dozen, every cartoon had these back in the day. What could be so traumatizing about it? You'd probably think there would be some kind of scary depiction of a bad trip, but no, I could get over that in no sweat. What I got was something a lot worse. So this kid starts getting drugs from this shady dude, and one of the other kids is struggling whether to tell or not. The drugged out kid starts stealing and looking worse and worse, and eventually Brave Star is told. He beats the drug pushers and they go to find the kid, but when they find out where he's hiding, you see this.
Here.
Easy, son.
Like, dude, this was messed up. The music, the anguished screams of his mother, which I performed a little too well for a show with cereal commercials in between it.
I'll call Doc Clayton.
Don't bother. It's too late.
Oh no! Jay! Oh no!
A lot of shows with drug messages have the kids learn a lesson, but not in Brave Star. No, that's too easy. This kid has to die, and not only that, but you have to see it. And not only do you see the dead kid, the episode ends with Brave Star talking at his grave. They really hammer it home. This kid has passed on. He's no more. He ceased to be. He's expired and gone to see his maker. He's a late kid. He's a stiff. Bereft of life, he rests in peace. If he hadn't been cremated, he'd be pushing up daisies. He's run down the curtains and joined the choir invisible. This is an ex-child. And well, this episode was a lot to handle. Sticking with the older cartoons, next up is Captain Planet. Now you could spend hours talking about the messed up stuff in Captain Planet. Like the time he told you that it's wrong to have more than 3 kids, or the time a guy literally ODs in front of the Planeteers and they just stand by his corpse while summoning Captain Planet. Lots of good vibes in this show. But the moment I want to talk about is something that I have literally thought of at least once a week for actual decades. There's an episode where Wheeler, the Fire Planeteer, goes home to New York for a while. He talks with his abused mother, his alcoholic dad, and hangs out with his friends that have since became gang members. So yeah, pretty wholesome content so far. The episode mostly deals with Wheeler trying to get his friend Trish to turn her back on the ways of gang life. At some point you see the gang members hopping trains to travel across the city. Now remember that, it's gonna be important later. After getting fed up with how things are going, Wheeler goes to talk to Trish, but not being able to get anything out of her, he instead asks to speak to his other friend. And Trish tells him this.
Just tell me where I can find Frankie.
Try the morgue.
What do you mean?
Frankie froze, okay? He He lost his nerve at the tunnel, then he lost his head.
So, when I heard this as a kid, I didn't want to go to school that day. Images of that guy's head just popping off if he smacks into a wall? That is not something you tell the kids. Are you okay? Are you okay, Ted Turner? Why did you hurt me like that? I didn't do anything and you didn't have to do that. I didn't want to know what decapitation was in first grade, but I did, and it's your fault. I hate you, Ted Turner. Hurry up and give me a new Captain Planet. It's a great show. I'd like to watch it again. Moving right on, we're going to talk about something that most people are familiar with. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Or more specifically, the 2003 version. Now, Ninja Turtles has always been a series that bounces back from being silly, goofy fun to dark, gritty drama. Not a criticism, just an observation. I personally find the 2012 series to be the best because it takes elements from every series that came before it and meshes it together into the ultimate Ninja Turtle love letter. But I was in high school when that series came out, so although there were a lot of scarring things in there, I still cry when Splinter dies. It didn't shape me as I grew up. However, there was an episode in the 2003 series that shook me to my core. And no, it's not the Baxter Stockman episode. They didn't show that one, I didn't see it till later. Instead, the episode I want to talk about is Same as It Never Was, which sees Donatello, the best turtle, getting flung into the future, where Shredder's evil is law. Now the foolish turtle seeks to return to the past and undo the evil that is Oroku Saki. Now this is pretty much your standard bad ending future episode. Up until the last 10 minutes, where they just start mercilessly killing character after character. And not in a simple like, oh, they got shot or fell off a building kind of way. No, they beef it in the most gruesome ways you can think of. Hun and Baxter Stockman, who aside from being turned into a hideous fusion, are crushed underneath Shredder's foot. Mikey is slashed to pieces, Leo is stabbed in the back, and Raphael is bludgeoned to death. Now when I was a kid, and even now, the Turtles were a super big part of my life. So to watch them die, one after the other, right in front of my big stupid little kid face, my heroes biting the big one as all I can do is watch? Well, I'm pretty sure at that point I became a legal adult. I hit the Danimals pretty hard that night, trying to find happiness at the bottom of a strawberry banana blast. But there's no happiness there, only sadness, regret, and the promise of a night of pain. But it was just an hypothetical episode and everyone was cool, so I got over it. Still though, not cool. Alright, to wrap things up here, I'm going to talk about a show that would probably be the last thing you would think of when talking about traumatic events. Hello Kitty, or more specifically, Hello Kitty's Animation Theater. I love Hello Kitty and Sanrio in general. Cute stuff is what I live for. And I used to check this show out from the library all the time. It was basically just Hello Kitty and her friends reenacting fairy tales. Sounds pretty nice and cute, right? Well, it was. Right up to the point where they decided to perform The Little Match Girl. Now, if you've never heard of a Little Match Girl, consider yourself lucky because it makes me want to shoot myself. It's the story of a girl who tries to sell matches, but no one will buy them. Growing cold, she decides to light a match, and every time she does, she can see a new comforting vision. Delicious food, her recently deceased grandma, real nice stuff. Eventually the girl strikes as many matches as she can and grandma comes down to whisk her to heaven. Which sounds nice on paper, until you realize that this means the girl died. A bittersweet story by itself, but when you think about it with the characters of Hello Kitty, that's Hello Kitty. Dead. In the snow. I don't care if she's smiling. That is a dead Hello Kitty buried in the snow. And this is me after watching it. Now, I'm not usually one for censorship, but this needs to be cut somewhere. I remember sitting on my bunk bed watching this, dropping my cereal spoon mouth agape as I stared at the lifeless corpse of Hello Kitty. Because that's what it was, a corpse. A corpse for your child's viewing pleasure, and that's what cinched it for me. I lost all empathy. Humans are nothing more than bags of flesh meant to be toyed with for my amusement. Because if a cartoon is going to show me Hello Kitty dead in a heap, well then I'm pretty sure we're all screwed anyway. I hope you enjoyed me talking about the crap that royally messed me up. To be honest, it's only a fraction of it, but if I talk about it any more, I probably won't ever get out of bed again. I'm going back to therapy. Animation was a mistake, and I hope you all feel my pain now too.